My brother just sent me, my brother lives there, just sent me a story from a distant relative of his who wrote this up, an unbelievable story. And I'm sure it's going to go viral. I'm sure, if he could email it to me, I have no doubt it's going to go elsewhere as well. This is not the kind of story that you hold for yourself. But Mama's just showed up. It must have just written it because this is a fellow who was fighting until a few days ago. A frum fellow with a wife, with a kid. And he said, Shabbos morning, he was called up. There was no official call up. His commander, his battalion commander saw that. There's no way that he saw what was going on. He said, there's no way it's going to happen. I want everybody from the unit. I want you to all get going and get up here to the south and let's start fighting. And there was no battle plan. There was no anything. There was no official call up. It was just like everybody come. He said a few hours later, they got in the Humvees and they drove up to the south and they went to Kfar Aza. Now, he's a reservist. Reservists don't have their own weapons. When you go back for Miluim, when you go back for reserves, typically what happens is that's when they hand you your gun. Now, these guns are like rent-a-cars from Rent-A-Wreck. They're not well taken care of. What happens, a soldier takes care of his gun. He cleans it. He takes it apart. He makes sure there's no parts there that are jamming. He has to align the sight, right? You got to get the sight zeroed in so that when you're using it to shoot, you're shooting straight. Otherwise, you're the gang that can't shoot straight. It's not, those weapons are silly. You don't go into battle with a weapon that the sight hasn't been dialed in. And he says that's when you go on Miluim. You first spend the first day or two making sure your gun works. Well, guess what? He said. He got off the Humvee. He got there, and they just handed him a gun. There was no time to check it. There was no time to clean it. There was no time to do anything. Very dangerous to go into battle that way. What should he do? This is what he did. He's got the gun. So he took his gun, went into Kfar Aza. He said immediately, within the first few minutes of walking, they encountered a terrorist in a bush with an AK-47 trying to ambush them. And Baruch Hashem, he said, without cleaning his gun, without anything, without nothing, he said, Baruch Hashem, that gun fired and fired and fired. He said he did tremendous. For 3 straight days, he was shooting and shooting straight. Not once did the gun jam on him. Baruch Hashem. Not once did this gun that was filthy, that was misaligned, there was nothing. He had no way to use it properly. No time to do anything with it. Not once did it jam. It didn't misfire. It was mamish. He said his aim was true. 3 days later, Tuesday, they finally switched out his unit with a different unit. He'd been fighting for 3 days. They switched out his unit with a different unit. And he comes to a base. And on the base, then you go to the range. That's where you can dial in your sight. That's where you can clean your gun. That's where you make sure it's working. And he says he goes to the range and he tries to shoot the gun. He tries to fire. And it's jamming. And he tries to fire again. Jamming. He gets his pliers out and he starts trying to fix it. And the whole thing is verstunken. The whole thing is not going to work. And he has to go to the armory, which is where they take care of the guns. They ended up having to switch out all the internal parts of the gun. He said the gun was broken. They handed him a broken gun. But b'hashgacha elyono, for the 3 days that he needed it, the gun worked. It didn't jam once. The second he gets back to base, he couldn't fire it. It was the only thing it did was jam. Do you see the hashgacha? Do you see the hashgacha elyono? Have we had tzaras? Shreklach tzaras. Terrible, terrible tzaras. But you can't, even within the tzaras, you can't miss the hashgacha elyono. You can't fail to see it.